Mayor Williams, would you like to join us? Thank you everyone for joining us for our joint City-County Committee meeting this Tuesday, April 9th at 9:07 a.m. On the first item on our agenda is approval of minutes, but we're not quite at quorum yet. So we'll... Microwave. Quorum is at the microwave. Oh, and so we will go ahead and move forward with the update on the combined City-County DPS housing initiative from Councilmember Caballero.
Ours are green. That's what's throwing me off. I was like, red is bad. Anyway. Good morning, everyone. I don't have a lot. I sent Chair Alum, Mayor Williams, and Chair Umstead from Durham Public Schools Board an update yesterday that entailed folks who we were hoping would be appointed. Ultimately, it is the chairs of each board and the mayors, because they will be their appointees. It is their decision, and so once they review the list and provide feedback, then those folks will move on to be formal appointees. If those chairs and the mayor could forward it on to both respective county and city managers, that would be helpful. Additionally, there were some staff folks that we mentioned, but that's really up to y'all. I've been having conversations with Manager Page about some city staff support, and so did list some of the folks we were anticipating from the county, but I will let Chair Alum do that advocacy, because it's her and Commissioner Jacobs' governing board and not mine. So that's all, unless anyone has any questions.
If you want to give us a quick update on what the initiative actually is and what the goal is of the committee.
Yeah, and hold on. And I do want to thank the folks who've been helping me brainstorm. Those folks are Russell Pierce from Housing for New Hope, Eliza Matthews, who sits on HSAC, Aaron Kane from the Planning Department, Ryan Smith from City Community Safety Department, and Ted Heilbron, who is an affordable housing developer, and Dan Jewell. Those have been the folks who've been involved to date. And I'm looking for the email I sent so I can make sure to list the work appropriately. Thank you. Okay, so essentially the purpose, as we've determined to date, is to provide short, medium, and long-term recommendations for a unified housing plan for Durham that establishes clear goals or needed process changes. The task force will be assigned the following things. Besides, providing those recommendations, the analysis we're asking them to do is to name gaps and identify resources, identify 6 existing and future assets, and identify process / friction points in our current system. Additionally, I am looking for private funding to do a formal housing needs assessment that would work independently in track. We would ideally have that housing assessment first, but since it wasn't a formal item on either commissioner or council side budget asks, we didn't want to wait until subsequent budget. It would delay us by a year or two, and we felt like we needed to just move. Those are the updates I have, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Caballero. Do we have any questions? Commissioner Jacobs, then Councilmember Rist.
I just want to say thank you. This is very exciting, and I appreciate how quickly it's getting going, because there's an urgency around this. I just wanted to share last night, and they may have come to you too, but Grace Jones, who is the president of the Realtors, she, we had a proclamation last night for Fair Housing Month, but she also mentioned in her comments that, that they stand ready to be a partner. And so I mentioned last night about this effort, and so I would just want to, just share that the Realtors Association would love to be a part of it. So I told her I would pass that on as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. Each kind of, essentially we're breaking up the groups into AMI buckets, and each AMI bucket will have a subcommittee, and so I'm expecting folks to have a lot of, people are going to be brought in for their expertise. We just didn't want a large group of formal appointees because it gets hard to coordinate so many schedules. But we're anticipating lots of different folks being brought in for their expertise around specific things.
Great.
Councilmember Rist?
Thank you. Thanks, Councilmember Caballero, for the update there. Exciting stuff. This may be just stating the obvious, but can you say a little more about, I mean, we've never done this before, the city and county, right? So can you say more about the sort of
And
like
schools.
city and county interaction on this and what's unique there and what the potential is?
Thank you. I will actually like to mention Aaron Kane did bring I think from the 80s, a unified housing strategy, maybe early 90s, which was pretty fun to take a look at. So I think there has been attempts before, at least with the city and the county. It's been a long, long time. I'm not aware of an effort that involves schools, county, and city. I think, at least from my perspective, Forever Home Durham was an incredibly important first step, but I think one of the things that at least I've realized as a council member is housing is something that affects so many different organizations and so many governing boards that it didn't seem, as the Forever Home Durham plan, you know, and it's year 4 basically of a 5-year housing strategy starts to kind of, and every dollar has been allocated, and both the city and the county have thrown every ARPA dollar possible at affordable housing. It's clear that we need something quickly, and that it needs to be, we know Durham Public Schools has talked about workforce housing, we know Durham Tech has talked about workforce housing, so it seems pretty important to ensure that our large employers, our large organizations are all working together and that there's a clear strategy moving forward.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Yeah, your question, Carl, brought up our trip to Charlotte with Housing for New Hope to look at the permanent supportive housing projects and to look at the donor walls in Charlotte. And you see the foundations, the private sector, who are involved. So I would just say, we all know, and I've heard you say this yourself, the government can't solve this problem either. So I think I would add, for your question, Carl, we've never done anything where we've truly brought in every single stakeholder, you know, in the community to be a part of the solution as well.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Councilmember Caballero, for taking this initiative on and leading us and making sure that it's getting done on time. Well, not even on time, just getting done all together.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions from the manager or attorney's team before we move on? Okay. Then that is it for that item, and that moves us into our property tax relief fund discussion with our tax administrator from the county side, Mr. Kiar Doyle. You want to join us? And there is an updated resignation that our clerk is sending everyone to have a digital copy as well of it.
And I would add, before Mr. Dole starts, that our Department of Social Services is actually also involved in providing the oversight for this program.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kiar Doyle, Durham County Tax Administrator. Wanted to say again, as manager just mentioned, this program is a Department of Social Services program. I did work with them to make sure that I shared the information that they wanted to share and that everything was pretty much vetted through them. We do partner with them in this effort, but this is something that they administer. All right, quick program overview. Durham County Department of Social Services is working in partnership with Durham County Tax Office to operationalize the property tax subsidy program targeted to help longtime homeowners in lower income brackets remain in their homes through a tax support program. The program began in October of '21 and headed into going through the 3rd year of the program currently. To be in this program, get qualified, full eligibility requirements include property must be within Durham County, homeowners who have owned and used the property as a primary residence for at least the immediately preceding 5 years, so they need to be in the property for at least 5 years to even try to get into this program. Residents who are not receiving other state subsidy tax assistance, referring to the 3 programs that the tax office administers through the state, such as the homestead exclusion, there's also the elderly, and there's the disabled veteran program. So those 3 programs, they can't already be a part of to try to get into this particular program. Households with incomes less than or equal to 80% average median income, and provide all required documentation. The documentation requires various documents, but mainly, Social Security, income, things that prove your income, tax ID for those who may not have a social. There's a list of things that they need to provide. The assistance amount will be tiered based on household's income. This is the thing that separates this program from the other 3. There is a lot more opportunity here. Right? The state programs, pretty hard to get into those programs based off of the income. So this is the one thing that I think definitely separates this program from the other 3 state programs. Less than or equal to 30% AMI, and 60 plus and over, 100%, whichever is smaller. In this particular one, of course, as you can see, possibility of getting the whole tax bill paid. Second one is 31 to 60% AMI, 50% of the tax bill, or $1,250, whichever is smaller. And the 80%, 61 to 80% AMI, 40% of the tax bill, or $1,000, whichever is smaller. Again, this particular program is provided through the Department of Social Services, funded by annual contributions from the county government and the city government, $750,000 from the county, $500,000 from the city, totaling $1,250,000. Spending. This particular information was taken from from the tax administration. This is based on what we actually record when we are sending those funds out after they've gone through the process. From August 2022 to March 2023, 340 recipients received payments totaling a total disbursement of $357,483,000. From the county, that is a contribution of $202,693, and from the city, that is $154,790,000. This particular disbursement increased the next effort. That's the first year there. The next year, which is including, because of the time periods, this is including some of current spending. The total number of recipients at this point, and it's still going because it hasn't closed out yet, 406 recipients totaling $578,000. From the county, you have $328,000, and from the city, $250,000. Program applications increased, as you can see, from the very first year of this effort, from 339 to the next year, 435, and currently at 539. These are applications, these are not approvals. So this is showing you the increase. I believe that the outreach increased each year, and so we see a reflection of that in regards to the amount of applicants. During the launch year, the program received 339 viable applications. Of that total, 200 applications approved, averaging $714 of assistance per household. In fiscal year 23, the program received a 28% increase in those applications, totaling 435 viable applications. To date, 328 applications have been approved. That is speaking for the second year of the program. The program closed out January 31st of 2023, and currently, I believe they said that it would be closing out in June. Yeah. So, as of March 31st, 2024, the program received 539 applications, and it's still going. Any questions for discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I see Commissioner Jacobs' hand up. I do want to ask a quick question before, can you let us know what is for the average median income ranges, what that number actually, like dollar amount income is right now in Durham, if you have that, or if not, could you share that at a later time?
Average median income
so
range? Oh,
like
what
the
is
30
that
to
dollar
60
amount?
Yeah.
I do not have those metrics. I can get that from the Department of Social Services.
Commissioner Lum, I actually have that data. Yeah. So
great.
you want, so for a household of one or two, or just give me, say 1, 2?
Yeah, I'd do like maybe a family.
Okay.
Three.
So let's start with 2. So a family of 2, extremely low income, below 30% AMI would be 24,003 or below. At that 2-person household, 31 to 60% AMI would be 48,540 max. And then for low AMI, between 61 and 80%, for a household of 2, would be 64,750. And let's just go, like, say a household of 4, just to compare. So for a 4-person household, below 30% AMI would be below 30,350. For very low, 31 to 60% AMI would be, for a household of 4, 60,660. And then for the household of 4, between 61 and 80% AMI would be a max of 80,900.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Riss, for having that at top of hand also, and thank you, Kiar, for making this presentation. I just wanted to get those numbers to just reemphasize that, when we talk about 60 to 80%, sometimes folks are like, well, 80% is so much, but it's actually really not. Here in Durham, especially when we're talking about taking care of a whole family on that salary, so I just really wanted to emphasize that. Commissioner Jacobs, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I just had a few questions. One was, I know that we changed the application deadline for this year. When does it close out for this year?
I was told June.
June, okay. And I mean, it's really great to see we've actually increased the enrollment about 50% from last year to this year. So I want to give kudos to the staff, but also to community organizations. I see James Savara here. A lot of people in the community have been helping to spread the word and get people enrolled. I also want to mention that one other new component of this is counseling. So now, when people get enrolled in the program, there's an extra step of, and I don't know if this is our I see Maggie's back here, but whether it's our aging and adult services social workers that do also meet with people to see what other benefits they may be eligible for that they're not currently enrolled in, or to see what other barriers or problems they may have. I mean, it may be something like senior pharmacists getting help with their medications, whatever. So they're now doing case management. And I just want to mention, last night we approved $750,000 of ARPA funds for home repairs for seniors in the county, 60 years and older. So hopefully this could be something else that we find out if one of these folks who qualifies needs their roof replaced or whatever, that's something else, or needs a handicap ramp that we could also help them with. But so we've increased by 50%. My question is, do we have any idea what the universe is of how many people are eligible for these programs that we're still not capturing? Do we have any idea about that?
Not that I'm aware of. It would definitely require us having more income information from that per household, what the incomes are.
I don't know if Director Savechnian, since she's here, if you would like, I know you have the next presentation, but if you'd like to join, if you have any of the answers, feel free to also come on up.
Yeah, is there any way for us to get that or figure that out? No, we don't know. Okay. Yeah.
We do offer case management.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. That's a big question on my mind. We see how many people, 406 recipients, but I don't know if there's any way to That would be helpful if we could know how many people were missing. I just don't know.
Yeah, I think
Juan
that-
just got her hand up on that.
I certainly don't know, but I would like to, to speak. There's income information that is gathered when when the census is done. It's self-reported, by census block and those kinds of things. But certainly for any program that the city and county is involved in, those, household size, household income, income from all sources that has to be presented. Basically, the main keeper of that information is the household itself. So our biggest ability to get to everyone in the community is through our engagement and through our communication around the programs that we are offering, which are really, really great benefits to our communities. Thank you.
Councilmember Caballero, then Councilmember Anthony.
Thank you. Could you go to the next slide really quickly? I just wanted to look at it. Okay, thank you. That's all. I just wanted to see what the total was. I just had a question about with like the case management. Are folks, I know sometimes when seniors end up in hospitals for illnesses, often a social worker will be there to see what types of programs that elderly person can be enrolled in. Meals on Wheels, things like that. Are we also doing this for the property tax relief when we're having seniors who are, either?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
So as a.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think another question I had is, how are we advertising this out in the community? So unless you're getting potentially flagged for services if you're in a moment where you're qualifying for other things, but then just more broadly, how are we putting this out into the community so folks know that they can apply if they're not intersecting with social services in another way? And that's just a general question.
You want to?
Well, I don't know exactly every effort in the past. Through recent conversations with Department of Social Services, I believe Lee Little and Contessa Sawyer, we had some conversations of ways to do a little more moving forward. I think including some of their flyers with our mailings would be a good idea. We currently make sure that we advertise or suggest things when we have taxpayers in the actual tax office making payments or coming in for other issues. So word of mouth currently, I think more can be done through the mail system. It's on the website, so there's actually access to those who are on the website. It's kind of hard to miss if you make it to the website. So I think there's some efforts that we need to try to reach those who are not internet savvy and those that are not currently getting things through their current activity in the tax office. I think the radio might need to be exhausted, taking advantage of some of these Durham events and festivals throughout town. I think Centerfest is coming up. There can be a lot of different ways to get the word out a little more. I think it definitely shows that the increased recipients from year to year is that whatever outreach efforts are taking place are being effective. My concern is that we definitely make sure we do as much as we can leading into this 2025 reappraisal. This program will be very, very, very important to supplement the programs that already exist. The state programs are very hard to get into for the income reasons. This program gives them a little more opportunity. So I think this is very important for the next 2 years at least to have this option available.
Thank you, Commissioner Holm. I still have a couple more questions. Okay. Additionally, have you all been on the city's City Life program talking about the tax relief?
I have not.
Is that maybe something we could investigate in getting them on City Life? And then have we done something in our water bills about the program? Sorry, that was a question for Manager Page. I'm sorry.
Not certain about either of those, but we'll get back with you on it.
Okay, so I guess that's my request is on the city side, is if we haven't done it already or doing it again, especially leading up to the reval next year, which we know is going to hurt folks, is really thinking about what are the ways that we need to get this information out that we already have. And then I think the charge for us as elected officials is next budget season, potentially having to put some dollars on the admin side to make sure that this can get out into the community, especially with the reval that's coming. We know that that's going to hit lots of folks. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Kiara, thank you, man, for the work
No problem.
and leadership in this that you do for us. Really important initiative. I want to, I smiled when Councilman Commissioner Jacobs, when you mentioned or asked about how large the universe is. And my assumption is it's pretty big. And it's interesting because we launched this without having that question asked first. And I think it's worth kind of revisiting what the animating spirit of launching this was. We believe that this is one of the driving forces of gentrification. I mean, that was the talking point, that paying taxes, a burdensome tax bill is the reason why, or at least one of the driving forces behind gentrification, so we needed to do something. So we launched this even without having some of the traditional variables substituted that we would normally have metrics, because we just know it's a lot of folk out there. I think the question is, how do we get more, but given the numbers that we have participating, how do we get more folk participating in the program? And I have a question that's relevant to that in a second. But I did want to, the slide on the tiered amounts, the first less than or equal to 30% AMI, 60 plus and over, it's just 100%, right? Not whichever is.
Correct.
Okay, all right, cool. I wasn't the best math student, but one of the question about participation that I alluded to earlier, one of the concerns when we first launched this was onerous paperwork and how much, and I saw that required documentation was up there. Could you give us a sense of just what is the required documentation and how large the cachet that is?
There's a long list of ors.
Okay.
Do you have that list?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was a long list. Mr. Little kind of divvied out. I know it was a bunch of ors, so it's not a long list that they have to have. It's a bunch of different options. I know it was Social Security or tax ID. There were income, basically W-2s, things of that nature, or your tax returns. There was proof that you are not currently in a program, another program, state program. There was also a requirement of the amount of people in the household, somehow showing that. Yeah, so there was, proof of or where you are currently with your current tax bill. But yeah, there's a long list of things that Department of Social Services asked for to be presented.
Sure, and I appreciate that. And obviously, we have to dot our I's and cross our T's when spending taxpayer money, but anecdotally, I spoke to a couple of people who are in the program, and again, this is anecdotal, not scientific, but one of them said that it's hard. The paperwork is really kind of burdensome, my word, not theirs. It is difficult to navigate. Again, anecdotal. So if there's anything we can do to streamline or make it a little easier for folk to apply, that might be helpful. And finally, Councilmember Ritz, what was your source for your numbers that you were? I don't know. I'm sorry if you stated what it was.
Yes, that was I have to give all the credit to Jim Sfara, who's here with the Coalition for Affordable Housing and Transit. They sent out frequently sort of flyers about the program, and that has sort of that's his numbers. I'm sure it's census data that lets folks know at which for household size at which level they qualify.
Jim, good morning. Good to see you. Were those MSA-based numbers, or were those broken out specifically to Durham, or was that metropolitan statistical area numbers? Because I've seen different sets.
The median income figures?
Yeah.
The combined Durham, Chapel, Durham, Orange County.
It's MSA, okay.
Annual.
Got you. Got you. All right. Thank you. That's it, Madam Chair. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Good morning, everyone. QR, thanks for the presentation. Did you say the breakdown of like age groups or just the demographic breakdown, or do you have that information of the program participants?
I do not the actual recipients, no, I don't. I do have a breakdown. I didn't have it included in these slides in regards to each recipient and how many people are in that particular household. I can retrieve that information, but in regards to the demographics or any of that type of information, I don't have it. I just have names and addresses.
Okay, I think that that information would be helpful as well, because to me, all of this is connected. I think, our behavior around housing impacts this, our zoning behavior, and just how we look at housing and the growth, just in general. All of this is connected, and I don't want to just address a problem with, I don't want to really work on a solution so much without fully understanding the problem or what the source of the problem is. So for me, the more information, the better. I'm glad that we have this program. I do think that we're going to have to bolster this program because Durham is seeing unprecedented growth, but how we grow and what goes where is going to dictate this. And I constantly think, on the council side with our, behavior around these cases, I always used to name Miss Sue or Miss Betty or, just for people that I've met. And I think about, they're 75, 78 years old, they own their home, they bought it decades ago, they're not going back in the workforce. And, we end up denying something or, in fact, approving something that could be more detrimental. And now Ms. Sue or Ms. Betty has to get in this program. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about it holistically. Thank you.
I just found what you were trying to share with me earlier. The online requirements to apply ask for a photo identification, property tax bill, income statements, and it has a few listed as examples: 2022 IRS 1040, W-2, W-4, 1099, dividend 1099 interest, SSA 1099, SSI, and alimony. So these are some either ors. It also says that property owners' total incomes from all sources must not exceed that 80% AMI, and it has a calculation to assist. So these are the things that are on the website that it's asking for.
Speaking for DSS, I think we can always go back. I think we can always go back and look at how our application process is and make it as seamless for people as possible. So I can say that we can go and do that. I don't know if it's going to change, but I can take a look at it. I also think that DSS, we need to go back and look at the data and see if we can comb through some data to give you all some of the answers that you're looking for. So if you will give me a little bit of time to do that, and hopefully we can try to mine some of that data from what we have.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Rist?
Thanks, Chair Alam. I have a lot of thoughts on this. First of all, Mr. Joel, thanks for the presentation. It's great to see the data and spark a conversation about this. So it was my pleasure to work on this when we developed this 3 years ago with many of the folks around this table, Commissioner Jacobs, Commissioner Alam, Commissioner Burns, as well as Mr. Svara, Councilmember Caballero, former Mayor Steve Schul, and so forth. So this is, well, actually, and my colleague, Councilman Middleton, who's always right on the issue. So you're absolutely right. People ask us in Durham, are concerned about gentrification. What can we do about gentrification? And there's not a lot of tools we have at the local level. This is one of them, a clear tool, right? I went on the web this morning. I know about, like, Jim, what is it, maybe like 18, 20 states have circuit breaker programs. I couldn't even find data on how many cities have a circuit breaker program. I think Charlotte may do something like this. Not many cities do this. So the mayor always talks about Durham being dope. This is a really impressive thing we're doing to battle gentrification. And I'm glad to see that applications are up. The second thing to say is that this issue of take-up is we're not unique in that regard. Most states have a challenge getting the word out to families to apply for a circuit breaker program. So while we do have that challenge, I think that's something all folks share with these kind of programs that we need to address that. And I love the comments here. The third thing I'll say, and again, my colleague, Councilmember Middleton, right on about like process. What does it look like? What's the process for applying? Is it difficult? Are there hassle factors in applying? And so I would just urge our colleagues in the county to think about this, how we can improve this, but also think about, are there different techniques? Like I know Code for America, which has done a lot of work around the country on redesigning programs, have engaged communities in so-called participatory design. I know, for example, in DC, they engage residents in redesigning the process for applying for housing vouchers using this participatory design concept with members of the community actually involved in figuring out how to design this best, and has produced some significant outcomes in DC on housing vouchers. So I'd encourage us to consider that kind of process to engage others who are the users in a process for thinking about, how, from a process perspective, how do we actually make this easier to work with? The other idea would be there's groups at Duke like the Center for Advanced Hindsight that work a lot on behavioral economics, thinking through systems and how we can make our systems easier for residents. So I'd encourage you to consider those resources as well. This is a huge program for Durham. As we all know, property taxes are mildly regressive, right? So families with lower incomes pay a higher share of their income for property taxes than families of a higher income. So as we're doing reevaluations and considering tax increases over the years, this is a key tool we have to address the challenge of folks being potentially priced out of their homes. So this is a really valuable program, and I hope we continue to work on some of the refinements and really make or not make the case, but share those with the community so we can engage as many folks as possible. So
No, I
thank you.
appreciate your comment about Duke, because we're actually working with them on something else, so I will reach out to them. That's a pretty good idea. Thank you.
Could I get some clarification on something really quick? Because the two of you would know. I want to apologize to everybody. A doctor's appointment ran long, so I ain't have to see it to know it was great. Y'all know. But I would say two things. One, well, three. Let's remember, this iteration of this program was developed by only a few people, and I'm just going to leave it at that. The other iterations of it failed. Number two, as far as refinement goes, before you were here, Maggie, one of the things that we did, we refined this thing like 4 different ways. And I think anybody who was paying attention to go back, if you even, if you don't want to go to our website, go to the Wayback Machine. This was not how it started. I remember I took a lot of kicks because the first, I think, 2 to 3 weeks of the program, Joanne, you might have to correct me, we set it at 30% AMI because I didn't want equal access. I wanted equitable access. I wanted folks who, our teachers, our law enforcement, they could get downtown and do this online, but the mom that had to find a babysitter, we were and we took a lot of flack for having it like that. And finally, Ben Rose, who's no longer with us due to some really overzealous residents, is no longer here. But we've refined this thing. We came back, we added more money to it, changed this, and that's why I said, so just so y'all know, for the public, we will continue to refine this, but I just want you to know, not every year, but like every 6 months since we've had this program, we have made changes to it to make it better and to improve the access and to improve the user experience. So that's number. Could you correct me? I heard what you said, Councilman Risk, but the Circuit Breaker Program and the Homestead Act are general statutes. I done looked it up, so just say yes, General Statute 105. So to find a list, if I'm not mistaken, don't all counties, and you correct me if I'm wrong, whether they have it on their website or not, don't all counties run a Homestead Act and a Circuit Breaker Program in this state?
Yes, all the counties.
So there's no need for a list, it's general statute.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, all the counties have access to the homestead exemption.
To the 3 state programs.
All 3, no, they have access to all 3.
Homestead exemption, not a circuit breaker. That's not correct. Very few cities have it.
Hold on, wait a minute, Kiara. There's enough lawyers in here.
It's a state, that is a state program, so.
Right, it's a state program. So I just want to make sure before we say that, we're doing something other. Here go Dwayne. Come on, Granddaddy. Let us know that you got more things behind your name anyway. And I will stand corrected, but.
So I'll let Dwayne answer that question.
then
And then
I'm
we
done.
had a line of hands up, so I want to make sure we get to everyone who had their hand up.
Go for it.
Good morning. Apologize for my voice. The general statutes, there are about, I counted them once, there are about 80 different ways to get tax relief. The big 3 are the homestead, which is 65 and older or meeting a disability requirement. Circuit breaker. The circuit breaker program in the general statutes, you can make up to 150% of the homestead income. And that determines the amount of taxes you pay based on your income. So all 100 counties have access to circuit breaker. Also disabled veteran program. So those are the big 3 that we deal with most often.
Thank you. Oh,
So that's a circuit breaker at the state level. Can you say more about how that's structured at the state level? Because I know most homestead exemption programs exempt a certain portion of your taxable, of the property tax from tax, right? But a circuit breaker actually applies it to as a share of your income, right? So does a state program work that way?
So the circuit breaker program at the state, let me I think I've met you all, but I'm Assistant County Manager Dwayne Brinson, formerly the Durham County Tax Administrator. I worked with the coalition in developing this LIHR program. One of the beautiful things about delaying the revaluation from 23 to 25 is that we were able to develop this program. So now we have it, and it's going to hopefully help our community. Circuit breaker program, and I'm getting a little out of touch with this, so Mr. Doyle, correct me if I'm wrong.
No problem.
Circuit breaker program, if you make the homestead income or lower, and I believe the homestead income is around $35,000, whether you're married or you're single. It's kind of a weird setup, around $35,000. So you can choose the homestead program or you can choose the circuit breaker program. If you make that level of income, the homestead level income, you only pay 4% of your income towards your tax bill. If you make between the homestead income, 35,000-ish, and up to 150% of that, which I'm going to say is 50,000, however the numbers work out. If you make between 35,000 and 50,000 and meet all the other requirements of the circuit breaker program, you pay 5% of your income towards your tax bill. The kicker with the state circuit breaker program is that it's a deferment program. In Durham County, and I don't have the latest numbers, Durham County is a large county. We have a lot of people. Of all the people in Durham County, I believe we have 22, 23, 25, before this program, participating in the circuit breaker program because it's the deferment. If you disqualify from the circuit breaker program, there is a reach-back period. And that reach-back period of 3 years includes interest. So that's why we're looking for something different in Durham County, because what the state offered to us, it wasn't really what we wanted. And this program is one of the first of its kind. Right? We have, since we developed this, we started working on this before the pandemic, working with the coalition, DCM Hager, DSS, and it's really evolved. We're really developing a good product. We have other counties and other jurisdictions following our lead. So I'll leave it there. I know that's.
I just want to add one important thing that you all need to take in consideration. This is very important. I've been here since 2007. Since 2007 to today, the income requirements for these programs, these state programs, have gone from $34,000 to $36,700. $2,200 difference over almost 20 years in regards to what those requirements are to even qualify. Your income has to be less than $34,000, now $36,700. That's joint. That's two people in one household not going over that amount. That is almost impossible to qualify for. So just having this program, regardless of how many people we're getting in it year to year, is just another option to possibly qualify for a little easier. And that's going into 2025 and maybe 2 years after. This is very important just to have these options. I can't speak to how to get the increased enrollment, but the option is needed.
Thank you so much, Dwayne and Kiara and Dr. Sachin, for providing that extra context. I think what's most important that I'm hearing from y'all is, yeah, we have these state programs, we have these other programs, but this is really the most robust program that's available to our residents. Having that up to 80% AMI means that we can reach even more residents across Durham County, and because it's a locally implemented program, it's something that we need to protect, because it's something that's not mandated by the state. This is something that Durham County, under Dwayne's leadership and Ben Rose now, Dr. Svechnian's and Kiar's support, has been able to grow from this 340 to 406, and I think now, Kiara, your slide said like it's at 539 applicants, so we'll see how many people get accepted. And I just want to highlight the fact that, going back to the fact that we have the reevaluation coming up next year, I think that's going to automatically start pushing people to want to look into this program and start applying to this program. And I'm glad we're having this conversation tied to our next presentation about the rental assistance, because there's going to be residents hit by the reevaluation in two ways. Either they're homeowners and their reevaluation is going to go up directly, or they're renters and their landlord's property tax is going to go up and it's going to be passed down onto them. So I just wanted to really emphasize that, because I know we're getting into our city and county budget seasons, and all of us are trying to figure out how do we fund all of the things that we need to fund. And unfortunately, here, we only have one main source of revenue, which is property taxes, for the county at least. I know the city has water, sewer, utilities, but more, but still not this, yeah. But I just wanted to emphasize that as we go into budget season. I see Commissioner Jacobs' hand, and then, did you have your hand up? Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Jacobs?
I just wanted to go back to the something that Mayor Williams said about who are we serving and Durham's demographics. And I want to go back to the aging plan that the city and the county did years ago, which basically had the data to show that a majority of senior homeowners are Black women in Durham County, and are low income, low income homeowners. So I think that it would be great if we could go back. Age-Friendly Durham, which is now implementing our aging plan, Shalicia Howard Martinez, I would suggest we could go back to them and ask if there's a way that they could give us some updated data on senior homeowners, because this program is targeting people 60 and older. The initial thinking behind this, and I want to give Dwayne credit for really launching this back in my second term of office. He was the one who came when I was chair of the board and said, hey, Mecklenburg County is doing this. I think we can do this in Durham. So I want to give you credit, Dwayne. But the goal was really, to your point, Carl, about how do we counteract gentrification, displacement, especially long-term residents. So I think we really should stay focused on this issue as we go into the revow. But I would suggest that we ask for help with them to get some of the data and to try to look at disaggregated data to see who is using the program, partnering for like the Durham Center for Senior Life and Age-Friendly Durham as a partner to help us get the word out and also help people fill out the application, things like that. The other thing I want to mention is that we know we had a presentation at Joint City-County Planning Committee last week that, and keep this in mind, that 30% of our homeowners are considered to be, I forget the income burdened with, spending more than 30% on things like housing. But renters, it's worse. So as we go into our next conversation, we also have to keep our eye on renters, because it's 50% of Durham residents are renters and 40% of them are income burdened. So just wanted to emphasize that as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. Councilmember Javiera?
Thank you. Just real quick, every year I know folks reapply. Does the system is it kind of like some other programs like free and reduced lunch program? If everything's the same in your household, you just re-up. You don't have to redo everything over and over. So I guess my question is it kind of like, has anything changed in your circumstance kind of question? And if not, then you're done? Or is it you got to redo everything every year?
I have to ask my program manager if she knows. I don't know that specific. You have to redo the whole application? Okay, so that's something then that we can look at. We are getting a new database at DSS, and we're going to be finally have the technology that we need to be able to house some of this stuff. So that's something we can look at with our vendor.
Thank you. That would be my suggestion, is essentially, unless something has changed in your household, which is how a lot of programs operate, you don't need to re-provide information, especially for a senior. Unless there's an adjustment to Social Security, which often is not very big,
yeah,
right? It's not going to change anything here, really. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much again, Kiar, Director Svechnian, Dwayne, for stepping in. I think this is going to be a conversation that we're going to continue to have, especially as we get prepared for the reevaluation. And I know, Kiara, I just wanted to highlight also the fact that he has already been going out and organizing community conversations about the reevaluation. And I believe this has been, part of that conversation, prepping residents for what their new tax bill could potentially look like. What does the reevaluation mean? And incorporating that there is this and multiple other avenues for support for residents.
I'm sorry, I have one, thank you, Chair Lum. Next, this is a question for Manager Page. Are our community conversations on the budget happening? I know this year they were a little late. Are we hoping to have them in the fall next year? I know that was the original plan.
Yes. Those conversations are anticipated to be done earlier this year as part of the budget.
Thank you. QR, maybe if we can ensure to have that, so the city is now doing community conversations every year on our budget, along with our our resident climate satisfaction survey, which I know the county's long been a partner on. And so the goal is to have those in the fall leading up to budget season. And so to your point around community events, I think it could be a really important place to have y'all involved, because this is where people are already going to be talking about the budget. And I can see as the reval's coming that as folks, and we were really successful and had a wide demographic this year, so I think lots of folks who are showing up to these conversations could be potential beneficiaries of this program.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And maybe in the future, at our next joint city-county or in one in the future, we can have a conversation presentation about the actual reevaluation, what the process is going to look like as well. Thank you, Kiara. Thank you, Maureen. And yes, I do. Oh, actually, we have, once Councilmember Caballera comes back, also go back to approval of minutes since we have quorum now. But till then, update on the status of the DSS Durham Eviction Diversion Program from Director Svechnian, our program manager.
And this is Megan Russ, the program manager over this program. So just a quick update. About a month ago, we ran out of funds. We moved, we found some in Open Doors, which is another one of our programs that we run. We found about $30,000. We moved that into the program. From April 1st until yesterday, we already approved $10,000 for the first week and a half of April. And we have $30,000 left until the end of June. And how much was March?
March was $33,595.
And I do not have any ability to move any other funds. Open Doors, we maxed that out. So I just wanted to let you all know that. We've are looking internally, but a lot of our programs are at the end of the year and they're maxed out. So I'm not seeing any line item that we can move at this time, other than what we already did with the Open Doors. Sorry.
Look, I don't know how to respond because it's just sad. I see Commissioner Jacobs has her hand raised.
So Maggie, are you estimating that we would need at least 60,000 to get us through the end of June?
I think more than that if we're averaging
Okay.
about 33.
Okay.
March was a good indicator because everything else prior to that NC Pro touched a little bit, correct? Well, February.
February was high. We spent $56,142 in February.
So what do you estimate the city and the county would really need to contribute to get us at least through the end of June?
I would say 120. Yeah, about, yeah.
So.
I hear whispers from the corner saying 170.
So what I would, this came up at our last joint city-county, and we didn't do anything. So, neither our bodies moved to take any action. So DSS went and tried to find some money to plug a hole. But we need to do something, each of us. And then also, you also told us last time for our budget planning for next year that you estimated we need 1.3 million between the city and the county.
Yes.
for rental assistance for next year. So I hope that everyone's deliberating over that with their budget, so.
And based on the last 2 months, I think we're still on target for 1.3 is what we would need to continue.
Thank you, good to see you. Just kind of dovetailing on Commissioner Jacobs' remarks. I think I asked at the last joint city-county meeting what the, first off, I accused you of burying the lead for the money part. I thought that the date that was at least projected, and I understand it was a projection that we were going to round the money was further. I thought it was sometime in the summer, if I recall that conversation. And I did ask what we, so I apologize if my thinking was that we had more time as boards to act. But hearing now that you've moved money from another funding source over, we need to do something, I guess.
Yeah, I think when
comes out to it.
we came in September, if that was the month that we came in, when was it? It was
End of
But no, we came before that. And so I think at that time, we were estimating around March. Unfortunately, December, we had a lot more than we would averaging before that. So December hit us hard. But yeah, we were estimating all along with NC Pro about end of February, March.
Okay, my apologies. Do you have a firm ask today or a range?
120 to get us through to June. 120,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very helpful. Member Caballero, then Commissioner Jacob, Commissioner Burns.
She called you first. Oh, you ain't got that? Okay. So one, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem as well as with Commissioner Jacobs. I do remember Mayor Pro Tem about, it was a meeting before last when we did think that was a projection, and yeah, it was December. So, and I think even after we had that meeting in February, I too thought that it wouldn't, that we were not there. I know we jumped in, the first question, one, were y'all done?
Yes.
Just now? Okay, making sure. Because I feel like last time, and there were some slides, you all did give us those 2 pages about how one of the things you all were trying to do, even as you gave out assistance, was to say, these are the additional wraparound services that you all might want to take advantage of. So of course, when they come to y'all, you're like, okay, here's an example of like the Bulls Initiative, how we can work with the Sheriff's Office to make sure, hey, this is what legal aid is doing, so forth and so on. So all of those measures are still in place, and we still have some of those.
Yes.
The big question that I agree with my colleague, Commissioner Jacobs. I hate to do some of this, but I also think I'm at another lens on this one with some of my colleagues. I know how much NC Pro gave out. I know how much NCOR gave out. There are days sitting in this job where I think about the ARPA money we got and the CARES money we got. While it was historic funding, it was the pinky in the dam. We probably needed it the whole time. We literally needed it the entire time because people are really suffering and we haven't gotten them back. So I agree with the firm ask. I don't know where we're going to get it from. I know we're not making decisions today. I'm not looking at my manager for a reason because I'm about to dovetail her into $650,000 or at least $60,000 to get us through this. But I'm hopeful that we can come up with something. And the only other thing I would ask, could you go over there was something in the last 2 pages, and I apologize, I'm not remembering, about how if they came back to us after 3 months or 12, and I might be mixing y'all up with the Homeless Advisory Council, but I know that they put something in place, and this is not me wanting to deny people access. This is not what that is. But I know with Homeless Services Advisory Council, there's that 12-month, 2-year, once you get that, like, that is it, right? It is it, and then you gotta wait that year to come back to get rapid rehousing. I know with the HOPE program, I know with NC Pro, when they were going back and saying we would do 18 months and maybe it was 12 in the arrears and 6 months forward, then we had to cut people off. Not suggesting that. I'm curious as to what measures we have in place if we see what maybe the Homeless Services Advisory Commission is saying that, okay, this is somebody that we've been supporting now for 5 years. So what measures do we have in place to look at that? Not cutting people off, but if we see utilization of the system, whether it be through, I stutter to say the word abuse, but just through the fact that this person really cannot get it together, like what measures do we have in place to either point them into another direction, get them into a shelter, or say, okay, this is the last month. So I feel like we talked about some of that, but.
So we can only approve assistance every 12 months.
That's, okay, thank you.
And we do also, using the system, I call it CADB, Community Access Data. I'm just making it up now.
That's
Okay. We can see how often someone is utilizing any of our crisis services programs. So we do provide case management based on the frequency of their applications. But beyond, if they qualify once a year for that particular program, then we're going to approve them if we have the funds.
My other question, if I can just throw this one out there, thank you to everybody sitting here. I know during the pandemic, we all had these MOUs with the state and the feds about duplication of benefits. While there's not as much money or not as many programs right now, there are still some statewide organizations and some nonprofits that offer assistance. I'm going to again ask the question that maybe nobody wants to ask. Are some of those still in place? And we know for a fact that folks are not maybe, and I'm gonna just use this as a random, well, let me make up a nonprofit. Exit Sign Nonprofit is also giving this person 3 months, the same 3 months that we're giving somebody 3 months. Do we have measures in place? And the only reason why I bring that up, I don't have a problem with people applying for more than one program, right? Like, I want you to apply for every program because you're looking for help, right? However, once awarded, if we see somebody getting too much, that's a person. That's like if I have an issue and I apply to 3 nonprofits and I get 6 months and I take all 6 months, if Javier needs something, I've now taken what you all gave me and you could have given it to her. Does that make sense? So do we have measures still in place? I know we had them before, but we don't have as many programs running to make sure that folks are not getting 2 or 3 at the same time. And I know it's hard, so.
So I think historically that's why CADB was created. However, we are now the only ones using that system, and there's no other community program entering information into CADB. So we ask the question, what other services have you applied for or receiving? But it's self-attestation, and there's no way for us to verify.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Caballero?
Yeah, I think this question came up last time, and I just wanted some clarification for income. You can do self-attestation. You don't have to, show an income, a tax form. Yes. Okay, and then for same with like a lease, can you show that you've just been consistently paying rent, but you're not on a formal lease?
We've verified through contacting the landlord if need be, verifying that it's a month to month if they don't have anything signed.
And what if a landlord isn't playing nice?
Well, we need them to because the check is cut to the landlord. So if they're not going to accept the funds, then we don't approve the case.
Okay. If somebody, and I'm assuming because it's local dollars, it doesn't matter about documentation status?
Correct.
Okay. Do folks know that? Is that pretty clearly communicated out to the, because historically that has been a limitation for folks. I know with ERAP 1 and, ERAP 1, the feds had to come down and say clearly that you could apply if you were undocumented because originally you couldn't. And so I just want to make sure that that's been put out into the community.
I don't know as far as outreach that we've done where it specifically states that. I know on our website, I think the criteria is listed.
Okay.
But we also don't have pamphlets that are going out advertising these programs, mostly because the funding
So limited,
Yeah.
right? And then I have one, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I believe through some of our community groups that we present to, we have said that, and we will continue to do that because I think that's one of the best ways to get word out as well.
Thank you. I had one last question, and I think I might end up remembering it, so I apologize. I might have to ask it in a minute.
I had one question. The 1.3 million expected need for the program next year, is that based on estimations and the usage of the program over this past year? Does it take into consideration, I guess, reevaluation? That's going to hit people's bills, mailboxes in January. Does it take that into consideration? Like, I know we don't have those numbers yet, but like projecting how much more people might need to use the program?
No, it doesn't take in the reevaluation. I'll let Megan talk a little bit more about it. Megan and I had to figure out the best way to come up with that amount because we knew that NC Pro had a lot more funds in it. And so we were spending a lot more money with NC Pro because landlords knew that NC Pro was there. Without NC Pro not here anymore, things have changed except February was 56. So what we did is we kind of averaged without NC Pro what that would look like, and that's how we ended up with 1.3. Is there anything I'm missing?
No, but we pretty much took the average number of applicants for any kind of eviction program that we've had, whether it was NC Pro or our county eviction diversion, and then we averaged that out with the $2,000 maximum amount that you could use per application. So that's how we came to the 1.3.
Okay, that's very helpful. I think, yeah, maybe if there's a conversation, I don't know, I know Kiara doesn't have his magic ball to show what the tax reevaluations will be, but if we can try to figure out like a way to take that into consideration when we come to the budget ask, because we're going to be considering these numbers in June, because I don't want to put y'all in this situation again. I don't think any of us want y'all in the situation of next year having to be like, we've run out of this money, and because there's probably going to be an increase of residents who need rental relief. So if there's any way to put an estimate of if there needs to be an increase on top of the 1.3, or if the 1.3 will be sufficient for the revaluation. Councilmember Caballero?
I remembered my question. Can y'all remind me, and apologies, a resident who needs help has to already be in eviction proceedings? No. Okay, that's what I was trying to remember. So can you walk me through, I'm a person, I need rent assistance, I lost my job. Can you walk me through what that process looks like? I show up at DSS, I heard about the program through a flyer. That's the background.
So you show up at DSS or you call, because we don't want you to actually have to physically come down, but you contact us, we schedule an appointment for you to be assessed by a social worker. The social worker would then go through the whole application process to determine eligibility for any of our rental assistance programs. And it's based off of how much you owe, how many months are you behind, do you have children in the home, are you over 60, are you disabled? All of these different things kind of help us determine, is it just eviction diversion funds? Can we add additional funds from other funding sources? And then we determine eligibility based off of that, but it's all through mostly phone assessments, gathering verifications, and then determining eligibility.
Thank you. What if I'm not, like this is my first month behind rent. I've just lost my job and I realize I'm not gonna be able to pay rent. I'm not in any kind of, formal process with the landlord. It's more, I just don't have the money and I don't wanna go through that process.
So that would be not using eviction diversion funds. That would actually be using our county EA or TANF funds, which are much lower. So eviction diversion maxes out at $2,000 per applicant. County EA is $200.
That's what
and then
I heard
TANF, if you have children, is $400. So a lot of times we can lump 4 and 2. You can get $600 if you're 1 month behind.
But TANF is federal, so then I'm getting into documentation issues.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my question is, if we're gonna have a question about a rent assistance fund, to me, I don't want to wait until folks are desperate and already in eviction proceedings, because that's already damaged their record, and that record stays forever.
You're right.
So to Commissioner Jacobs' point, I think part of this, for me at least, is if we're gonna do something as a city and a county, and quite frankly, that's a political question and involves a lot more folks than the people at this table, we need to do a deeper, and that's gonna be up to social services, which is not the purview of the city, on what exactly are all the buckets of money, who all, kind of like what we did with the property tax relief fund. We knew where all the barriers were at the state, right? And so what are all the barriers for our local population? Because I don't want to pony up money on the city side, no offense, for really historically what's been a county function, if it's not going to be able to serve any resident who lives in the city or Durham County to access those funds. Because what I've seen is that, and I know this to be true, especially post-pandemic and during the pandemic, is a lot of Latinos and a lot of immigrants, maybe it was low-quality housing, but they lost their housing. And so if you go into eviction court right now, it's a lot of immigrant families that had, maybe the housing wasn't great, but they'd been there for 20 years, and now they're out, lost a job. And those are the folks who are often hardest to serve because there's just so many barriers for them to even show up and make an appointment. And so our system, whatever it is, has to be designed for those people. Thank you.
But and I don't disagree with anything you said. Let me go back to this 2-page handout that you all had last time. That was one of, y'all are always talking about us streamlining stuff. That was one of the changes that we made and you all presented in the last meeting. I don't know who has it on tape, but that we didn't require somebody to already be in eviction court. Didn't we move it? We moved it back to 2 months. So even if we take TANF away, we have even moved back because we don't want people to have to go to court and have to deal with legal aid. And also we've been proactive to look at this landlord and say, do you really want the fiscal responsibility of having to go like through this? And we've seen some walk back. So I think that we've done a decent job of making sure that we tell people, and maybe we could do a better job of saying, hey, you do not have to all the way be at the point of eviction. You don't have to be 90 days. You have to be 60 days for this one, 30 days for this one. I lost my job for this one. And I hate to put this on some folks, and I think maybe it's unfair because we sit on this side and we know about those, and so it's in my head. And maybe this is the time, even if we don't do a handout for one, maybe since we do not see this issue going away, do just a single page something that lists all 5. Does that make sense, if that's fair? And that would be helpful. And then say, in English and in Spanish, and then we share it with both bodies and say, this is where you go. Because I do assume a lot, like I know them off my head. I'm pretty sure Commissioner Jacobs, we know them off the top of our head and we can tell people, but our heads are not everywhere, so.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Burns. Yeah, I'm just saying that to Commissioner Jacobs' earlier point, I think all of us are aware that we need a rent assistance fund, and I, as a council member, I'm not opposed to that. I think that's fair. I just want to understand what is it. This is an emergency, and that's different, but if we're talking about a more robust thing, I want to be clear on what are all the barriers, what are we actually asking for, and what does that assistance fund, how do we actually create a really robust one that serves as many needs as possible? That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Rist?
Thanks,
and then Manager Wade.
Thanks, Commissioner. First of all, I just want to thank my colleagues and staff for this really great discussion and a follow-up to our meeting last time. And I think Commissioner Burns mentioned this we did talk about this last time, and I think Ms. Rest presented those policy changes, so thanks for that. We have that in our minutes, and I'm sure you'll have all that data. I just have one question, and that was also related to our last meeting. The mayor did, and this is on the landlord side that my colleague, Councilmember Caballero mentioned. So last time, Mr. Mayor, I think he talked about re-engaging that sort of mayor-landlord roundtable. Where are we in that process? What needs to happen for that? Because I think that's a key part of the equation, right?
Yeah, I just have to keep remembering I got elected 4 months ago. And it's taking a little time, but it's definitely coming. I believe in May, we are opening an application process for folks that would join my guilds, which are basically advisory groups directly to me. And the Landlord Roundtable will be one of those. So it'll be a link on the mayor's website where folks can be engaged. But folks they're ready.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Caballero? Oh, no, sorry, Manager Page, and then Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Since the last question was asked, I will say from the city side that the city has recently executed an agreement with Housing for New Hope to do landlord engagement, and that contract is active, and the activities are about to start. That also leads me to, just for summary purposes, talk about how the city systematically funds affordable housing, and it is through a dedication of 2 cents on the tax rate. That is approximately $8.2 $8.2 million right now that is local tax dollars that we actually do not do anything else with. We do affordable housing, and that runs the gamut from homelessness all the way to, housing development, neighborhood stabilization programs. One of the things that we've talked about as an organization in our Forever Home Durham program, which spans 5 years, and we're tacking on sort of another year because the COVID year came in 2020, and that program was actually supposed to be kicking off in 2020. So some of the projects are going to bleed over maybe 6 months or more, but for practical purposes, it is a 5-year time frame. And during that time frame, we dedicated the majority of the funding sources that we have for affordable housing and all of the things that go along with that, our federal entitlements, all of the tax, the local taxes, as well as program income and other funding sources that we have. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that we deliver on every initiative that was part of Forever Home Durham, as well as fund anything that may come up as an emergency. So I wanted to give that background because there was no significant funding anticipated for rental assistance from the city in our 5 to 6 year program. So there was significant investments anticipated for eviction diversion, and that was, approximately $3 million over that time frame. But any rental assistance that we would have invested in, it's really not funded for us in a material way. It would be something extra. It would have to compete with some other priority that we have in our program, which could either be from homelessness, it would be from the development program that we have, or neighborhood stabilization programs, which rental assistance is certainly a neighborhood stabilization type program. But all of the initiatives that were anticipated are moving along, and in some cases getting toward the end of that program. If we're directed as a city administration to find funding for rental assistance, either in an emergency or long term, that is something that we would do because we would be directed to do it. But it had not been a priority for the city to provide rental assistance to residents during this time frame.
Commissioner Jacobs, I see you hesitatingly putting your hand up.
Okay. Well, I just want to get back to the task at hand, which is we have an emergency situation. So I hope that our board will take this up by the end of the month, which we have one more meeting. This is an emergency situation. And so I don't think I have to explain why to anyone here. And then, again, related to the ask for $1.3 million for next year, I remember our last meeting, it was like, well, this is also an equivalent investment. We're investing collectively $1.25 million in the tax relief tax grant program. So this is an equivalent, $1.3 million we're investing in keeping, people who are renters housed. And to your point, Councilmember Caballero, I think this is, great conversation about, it gives us time, it gives the DSS staff time to also, think about how do we structure next year's program. And again, this is an ask that's split between the two of us as well. So hopefully we can find a way to get this into our budgets. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick question. The contributions to the tax relief program, it's not 50-50, right? They're percentages. The county has a higher percentage than the city. 7 to, yeah, something like that. And if we're kind of framing this as eviction diversion as a corollary to that, then even in this emergency action, are we looking for 50-50 or the same type of percentage split will govern the city's contribution to this emergency action?
This program has been typically 50/50, right?
No?
I'm sorry, historically what happened, and this happened a few years ago, and this may be, I may need some institutional support, like memory support here, because I could be wrong. Several years ago, when residents came to us around eviction diversion, what the distribution was supposed to be the city covers the legal and the county covers the rent assistance. And so that is what we have done to date. The city covers 100% of the legal aid money, which we have increased over time to legal aid, and the responsibility of rent assistance was supposed to be the county's. I'm happy to revisit that conversation, but that's how it was set up, I want to say in 2018 or 2019, which is the first year that we funded legal aid. Thank you.
Do you know off the top of your head the total amount that the city contributes to that legal aid fund?
Was it 500,000?
The original amount was 500,000 per year. It has increased during the pandemic, and there's a request in front of us right now to have it be $1 million a year.
And my suspicion will be, even if we don't fund it currently, right, like if we're not able to do it with this current year, I would imagine there'd be a lot of council support. And so in my mind, that is the contribution we're making. Again, happy to have a rent assistance conversation in a broader context, but I feel like, at least from my point of view, the city has done its commitment on funding eviction diversion, if that's how we're couching this.
Thank you, Manager Page, for those numbers. Yeah, I'm looking at Councilmember Mark Anthony. So the county has been contributing $750 to the long-term homeowner relief program. The city's been contributing $500. So just rough calculations, if like we add up how much the city's contributing to long-term homeowner relief and the legal aid fund, it's about the city $1 million contribution, and the county's contributing 1.3 and $750, so like $2 million. So if we would love to see the city and the county have equal commitments, but also knowing, it may not always be 50/50.
Yeah, I mean, it's not 50/50 because y'all get 60% of the property tax bill and we get 40%. So in my mind, everything should be proportional to that. Thank you.
But yeah, I think to Commissioner Jacobs' point, we have this come up at our meeting for the commissioners, at least at our next regular session meeting. And then Mayor, if you can take this to get it added to your city council meeting for contribution from y'all's side.
Yeah, I was about to say what Councilor Ricaviero just said, because I understand where we are with this situation right now. It is pretty dire, but I'd be consistent with that approach. But we can definitely do that.
Any other questions, comments? Oh.
So do we, again, I think I asked this to Kiara, do we have like a demographic breakdown of program participants? And I not who, but, just demographic breakdown, just so you can, for me, the more information, the better, because it helps design support around other resources toward this proactively, or preventatively, rather.
So the easiest way to get or the best source to get the demographic information would be using ServiceNow, which was the program for NC Pro. Our CAD-B system is not the most robust in reporting and capturing all of that information. So for the county-funded programs, we're lacking that data. But if we wanted to look at NC Pro as just kind of a source of information, then we could definitely use that system.
Okay, and when I say demographically, mostly what I'm looking for is just geographically, where the...
Like zip codes?
Yeah, like if there's a heat map that shows where most of the requests are coming from.
Sounds good. Okay. Any others? I think that's it for this conversation. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. Can I ask
yes.
one question for clarity? So as we move forward, I did hear the point raised about the 60-40 split. That is what the LIHR program is, 60-40. So are we saying that we can move forward with, for the 22nd for us, looking at presenting something that's 60% of the 120,000? Or do we need to have further discussion on that between the boards?
I think that falls under the city to answer that question.
And it would be, for clarity, 72,000 for the county, 48,000 for the city, for the emergent need.
You guys have a majority here?
I don't want to speak for my colleagues. I feel like that's a full council conversation, and I would look to staff to figure out how to put that on, and to just have a broader conversation of, you know, I hear we're in a crisis, but I'm going to keep raising the point. Our commitment is the money we pay to legal aid for eviction diversion. That is historically how it was set up. And so, I mean, if we're negotiating, then, I think that there's a broader conversation around contribution in general, around, okay, if rent assistance is going to be something we're both covering, is the county going to start covering a percentage of eviction diversion attorneys?
Manager Sowell, Dr. Sowell, if I could respectfully request that you just prepare 3 options for us and allow the lady leaders in this chamber to move as best we can to help in what is clearly an emergency. And I don't think that my colleague, I'm seeing affirmative nods. Just prepare us for all 3. If nothing else, ladies, hopefully we can get you all the bare minimum so you all can get through. And I hope you know you were heard today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to, I completely understand what you're saying, Councilmember Caballero. I would say that you guys are not increasing the legal aid funding right now. So at this moment in time. So what I would say is this is emergency allocation outside of that original proportionality. So I would say just for this allocation that we go with the 40-60. And, you know, when we look at next year, you know, if you guys are going to go up to $1 million for legal aid, then it would make sense that we would take on the rental assistance part. So we can look at that structurally, but for this is out. Do you know what I'm saying? This is outside of the original amounts that we've each allocated. So I hope we can move forward with that.
Yeah, and I think the slight apprehension right now may be that, you know, just internally, and I'm looking at our manager, we have some very, very other dire needs as well that we're addressing at the same time. So it will be a full council conversation for us. We'll address it and see where we are, but I am going to, you know, at the appropriate time, lean on our manager to let us know where we are. Because there have been some pretty serious things we have to deal with lately as well.
Just wondering, so when does your council meet? Monday? So then maybe our managers can connect after your Monday meeting, and that'll give us a better understanding before we meet on the 22nd. No?
I'm going to look to Manager Page. It's going to have to be at a work session where we take this up.
Thursday, I'm sorry. Will be a work session.
Yeah, so Thursday, and then the quickest, and I'm looking to my manager, the quickest we could move is essentially adding it as a other item, essentially on a work session, and then potentially moving forward to the subsequent council meeting. So that's early May at the earliest.
But if you have the discussion on the Thursday meeting and kind of get an inclination of where the council is leaning, that'll give us, on the county side, a better understanding of what, at our 22nd meeting, we should vote on in preparation for y'all's vote.
So as I said, I will be directed by the mayor and council at the city of Durham on how to proceed with the emergency. You know, as we are sitting here, it is small amounts of money in very large budgets. And when we have budget shortfalls, we try to find those shortfalls within the resources that have already been allocated. All of our budgets are balanced. We all got fund balance. We have fund balance in different funds. So, you know, certainly there's $48,000 somewhere in the city of Durham, but it's also in the county of Durham as well. So it's really, I will really be directed by what the majority of the council tells us to do in this particular issue.
So I think our managers will be in conversation then, and we'll have our discussion as a board on the 22nd. Thank you. Thank you. So I just want to go back real quick to the minutes, since now we have approval, or quorum. And I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for February 28th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mayor Williams, seconded by Vice Chair Burns. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I just had a quick comment, which thank you to whoever did the minutes. They were fantastic. Really great. Thank you.
So the minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you to the city clerk for her diligent notes and minutes. That brings us to the summer programming and activities briefing from the City County Office on Youth. Ms. Khalil is not present with us, but she did share a memo that I believe everyone has in their agenda packet that was emailed out. So if there's no questions or comments on that, since she is not here, feel free to send her an email to let her know.
I just kind of want a clarification. I wasn't really sure. There was something saying that this is going to be sent out in a digest, and I didn't know what that was. Could somebody explain what it was said in the memo about how the information was going to be shared, but I didn't really understand it.
So, sorry. Yeah. So the Office on Youth has a listserv. That listserv includes providers of all kinds of youth services, as well as just people of interest. Commissioner, I believe you're part of that listserv.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be the medium for that, for that information to be shared with many people in the community beyond the just website presence and those kinds of things.
Okay. I asked for this item to be on our agenda because I know this is something that people, our former mayor, this was something that she had really focused on. But I just think this is really important when we look at prevention and related to, keeping youth out of involvement with our justice system and just addressing a lot of issues that we have in our community in a proactive way, and just the challenge that we have with in many areas of people not knowing about resources like our tax grant program. But I just hope that we could really we've just had great discussions about two programs, the rent relief and tax relief. If we could really dig into this issue with everyone about how do we really get our youth. I mean, it's ironic. Somebody just texted me, I'm not kidding you, and said, while I was sitting here, and they said, Wendy, what summer program are available for young boys between ages 6 to 13? This is a parent, a single male parent of 2 children who texted me this. People should not have to text because they happen to know me to ask me what they can do for their child during the summer, a working parent. So I know anyway, I just wanted to really raise this issue, and I'm glad that we now have this comprehensive link for people, but just how can we really have some targets and goals for ourselves about measuring how many youth are actually enrolled in either a program or a volunteer activity or a job. I hope we could have more conversations about setting some goals for the city and the county and measure them year over year.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. And I think since Ms. Khalil isn't present, if you want to send that in an email to her as well, that would be helpful. And then Mayor Williams, will be our last comment.
Speaking of which, I'll be speaking about this mentoring program in the office, this memo tonight in depth at the State of the City address at the Carolina Theater at 7 p.m., but there will be a pre-social hour at the Convention Center. You all are, of course, invited and have special seating. Thank you.
Thank you also. I'd manage your page.
Yes, I would want to add that the Office on Youth is providing updates very frequently. I just pulled up the website, summer opportunities for young people. It was last updated on March 28th. It is very comprehensive. The list, references the City of Durham programs, Durham County programs, as well as Durham Public Schools programs. So I do hope that people will help spread the word that there are programs that are available for our youth this summer.
Thank you, Manager Page. With that brings us to the end of our agenda. So I will call us to be adjourned. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.